This is BBC Radio 3, it's 10 o'clock and time for Night Waves.
Tonight we've come to the British Film Institute to raise some ghosts. Their father was the novelist Henry James, who conjured them for his novella The Turn of the Screw, the unsettling story of a dubious governess, two corrupted children and a pair of dead servants who won't stay dead. Tonight, as part of the BBC's Sound of Cinema season, we're exploring a work that brought them to the big screen. Jack Clayton's The Innocents, a masterpiece of gothic cinema with Deborah Kerr as Miss Giddens the governess and Peter Wyngarde and Clytie Jessop as the servants, Quint and Miss Jessel. Now, before we start talking about this film, I want you to do something for me. I want you to close your eyes. The film begins with a dark overture. The screen is absolutely black as night, and there's this on the soundtrack.
We lay, my love and I, beneath a weeping willow, but now alone I lie, and weep beside the tree, singing, oh, willow, waily, by the tree that weeps with me, singing, oh, willow, waily, till my lover returns to me. We lay, my love and I, beneath a weeping willow, but now alone I lie. Oh, willow, I die. Oh, willow, I die.
Who sang that?
Isla Cameron, who was a folk singer who also appeared as Anna in the film, or the servant, who was pretending to be a little girl.
I thought it was a marvellous piece to start the film, especially as it was dark, with the dark screen, and you just heard the voice. It's a marvellous beginning.
This is a woman pretending to be a girl as she sings this song, isn't it?
But what I find interesting is listening to it this time round is I thought, this is Miles. This is Miles lying there. So I actually got a whole other level of hauntedness and fear and sorrow and anguish about it.
Well, what was it called?
Oh, Willow Whaley.
And it's an old...
No, it was an attempt... in an early version of the script, they have someone reciting the Tennyson poem, Mariana, which is all about morbidity and Victorian lovers sitting under willow trees. And they decided to cut that and instead turn it into a song. Quite late in the day, they decided to start.
When did the idea come?
When?
Yeah.
Quite late, after they'd finished shooting.
Yeah, I thought so.
In the play, there's a completely different song, which is a rather upbeat folk song, "Bring Me Up On It" of Ripe Rosy Red. But that was chucked at the last minute.
No,
Clytie Jessop, can I come to you? What does this song stir in you, listening to it?
Well, it makes me want to cry, actually, because Isla was a friend of mine, and I got the part in the film through her. She borrowed a photograph that I had looking through a window with the rain on the window, and I'd just come back from New York, and she said, can I borrow that? And just for a few days, and she took it away and put it on her mantelpiece, and Jack was coming to have dinner there with some friends, and he walked up and said, who is that? And she said, she's an actress friend of mine, and he said, well, I'd like to interview her as a possible choice for Mary Jessel in The Innocents. So that's how it started. And Isla was a very dear friend, and it made me sad because she died in rather sad circumstances, and it brought all that back. So it means a lot to me to hear it again, actually.
Well, first of all, my agent was phoned up by Jack Clayton, and I was asked if I would be interested in playing Peter Quint. And I thought, oh, yeah, that sounds rather good. And I said, yes, I'm sure I would like to do it. However, I'm not quite sure how it should be or how he can be played or what he's like. So I think I'd better meet Jack and see what happens. So I met him and he said, I have to tell you, Peter, that there are two very famous actors who want to play this part. But I've turned them down because I think that you might bring something to it. I don't know what the hell it would be, but it would be something that I was aghast because I didn't know what he was talking about, really. And I said, who were the two actors? Much more interested in that. And he said, and this is, I thought, very interesting, Alec Guinness, which is okay, but wait for this one, Cary Grant.
Wow.
Oh, no.
Long.
So I thought, how the hell do I play this part after that? You know. So anyway, he said, what I want to do with you is I'm going to put you under contract for 9 months. And you will only appear on the screen for a minute and a half. But the first how I got involved with it in another way was I was in Taormina in Sicily on holiday and having drinks at the top. And I heard this awful American voice behind me saying, oh, no, she couldn't possibly play that Anna Karenina. She couldn't play a paper bag. And I thought, who's this awful bitch? So I turned round and it was Truman Capote. And so I stuttered something about, oh, I love your work. You know, and he said, well, may I say to you, you speak awful good English for a Sicilian. And that's how I met him. And the strange thing was that I didn't speak anything in the film at all 2 years later.
Did you know at this point that Capote was the co-screenwriter of The Innocents?
I didn't know that he was writing.
No, he wasn't brought in until much later.
But I'm still trying to remember who the woman is he was talking about, the actress who couldn't play Anna Karenina.
Yes, yeah, that's
I think it was Vivien Leigh. And he was quite wrong about that, I thought.
And did you know that he was responsible for us being cut out of the film an awful lot? Because
Not to speak.
Truman Capote saw the rushes and said, those ghosts are much too real.
Did
Get
he
rid
really?
of them.
Oh.
I mean, Hammer Films had just started, 1957, 58. And what you get from Jack Clayton's notes is an obsession with not seeming like a Hammer film. That, you know, there'd been all this sort of scandal in the papers about the Curse of Frankenstein and Dracula and the Mummy and all the rest of it. Mustn't be schlocky, mustn't be obvious, mustn't be in your face at all. It's got to be anything but that. And he agonises about how to present the ghosts. How can you do it so it's as if you're just seeing it in the corner of the retina, you know?
So, Clytie, Jessop, tell us how it was done then. There is a remarkable scene in this film where we see you hovering, appearing above a reed bed. We see it from a distance. We can't quite focus on you properly. You're a long way back in the frame. How did you do it?
Well, actually, we were on a barge and taken out to the reeds. And then we had firemen hose us with hoses. And both Deborah and Flora and myself all had to be doused in rain, and we had to stand there for ages and ages and ages. But the weird thing was the day before I'd gone to a fortune teller on the pier at Bath, and the fortune teller had been looking into this glass, and she said, I keep seeing the name Mary, I see the name Mary, and I see all these firemen. And I thought, oh, weird. I didn't even know there were going to be firemen there the next day hosing us down with water. So that was it.
And did you and Peter have conversations together about... Because these are deeply mysterious characters, aren't they, Miss Jessop and Peter Quint? We never are explicitly told the nature of their transgressions, what exactly the relationship is between these two servants and these children. But did you two work this out between yourselves?
No, I think that's a good thing about the film. I think it's never explicit. It's sort of suggested. But the interesting thing about the face at the window, I call it, was the only time you see me. They shot it one day, and Jack said, will you come along, because I'd like you to see if you've got anything to suggest about this. And it was Deborah, but she did about 5 takes on it and couldn't get the feel of this man at all before she drew the curtain. So what I thought might work, is do the scene again on another day. Don't tell Deborah, and I'll stand behind the curtain. And we did it. And Deborah, at the end of the thing, when they said cut, Deborah said, that's the one. Because she said, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck go up. So there is a thing about presence, not my presence, but a presence, that somehow or other it was there when I was there, or the ghost was there, but didn't work when no one was there.
Peter, what do you remember about the way that Jack Clayton negotiated with these child actors, how he handled them, considering the oddness of the material?
He was wonderful with them. The other thing which he did, which I thought, like all really good directors, they don't interfere with your performance. And the children brought naturally their own instinctive feelings towards it. And so whenever he directed them, he'd take them aside, away from everybody, and quietly talk to them about what was happening, which I thought was marvellous. He did the same thing with me and the same thing with Deborah. And you too, I should think, didn't he?
How did it work with you, Clytie?
Yeah.
Well, yes, very much so. But it's interesting about Pamela because I got to know her very well. And at one point we were sitting down at Sheffield Park on a hill waiting
Which
for
is the principal location for the film.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And she was very bored and she was sitting there. And I think she may have had an idea about what the film was about, actually, because she suddenly said, "Oh, do you think there are any child molesters about?"
Wow, really?
Yes. So I was
that's
quite
what it
shocked,
did to
actually.
you.
It really is.
How old were the kids?
Well, I think she was about 11, wasn't she?
Yes, 10 or 11.
So, Clytie, I mean, that sounds like quite a shocking moment. Did that chime in with your reading of the picture? Is that what you considered it to be about?
No, I didn't. I never thought of it in that way at all. I just thought of it as a woman who lost her lover, and that was the way I had my own sort of inner thoughts about the whole thing. But I became very attached to Pamela. She was just a very sweet child, and she was separated from her parents.
Really?
She'd been sent back from India to England, and she was rather like the children in one of the children in the book. You know, amazing, really.
Peter, does Quint seem like a representative of sin to you?
What, Peter Quint? I just thought he was evil. He was the epitome of evil. He was a nasty piece of work, I think. And frightening. I thought he had something inside that was horrible. And he loved to possess. I think he had a feeling of very possessive thing in his nature. I have a neighbour, an American neighbour, who has the most frightening eyes I've ever seen in anybody. They're like two black spots. Two ghastly spots, and I wish I could have borrowed them for Peter Quint, because they would be perfect. They're dead. The eyes are dead, and there's something dead in him. But he was triumphant in the end, except somehow he got drunk and slept on the balcony and conked himself out. Otherwise, we'd have a sequel now, wouldn't we? I'd get some work. That'd be an old Peter Quint.
Well, I'd go and see it.
There's a real darkness about it, both literally because there's so much by candlelight, which is very unusual. That house, when she's creeping around in the latter part, when Deborah Kerr's creeping around, the physical darkness of the place, the things emerging from the darkness, as we've already observed. And it's married to the darkness that's inside the most seemingly proper and decent people. You know, what could be more decent than the governess from the vicarage? And yet she turns by the end. And, when the last time you see Flora, you don't see her, you just hear her screaming, because she's so perturbed by what the governess has done to her.
That scream is one of the most extraordinary things in the whole of cinema, isn't it? And how has it stayed with you, Peter Wyngarde? Has it left marks on you? Does it haunt you?
No, not particularly. I just loved doing it, of course. I think it was a wonderful part. I just wondered what Cary Grant would do with it.
Well, nothing nearly as good, I think, probably is the answer to that question. It's time to break the circle here, but before we do that, please join me in thanking our guests. Jeremy Dyson, Christopher Frayling, Susie Orbach, and Clytie Jessop, and Peter Wyngarde. Good night.
Nightwaves was presented by Matthew Sweet and produced by Laura Thomas. The Innocents will be re-released on the 13th of December.